Welcome to episode 111.
Activism.
Whew. Join us as we explore the larger concepts of activism, the ways in which it's moved forward but by such things as protest.
And our recent personal experiences with the No Kings protest.
And the National Civil Rights Museum.
Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Witchy Wit podcast, where we look at life through a witchy lens. I'm Kimberlyn.
I'm Leilani.
At Witchy Wit, we explore current events,
Ideas,
music and books,
and experiences in ways that recognize energy and life in everybody and everything.
We are both real witches.
And we bring two real perspectives through the lens of our different ages,
races,
and backgrounds.
With a healthy skepticism for what we have been told is true, our conversations are raw, candid, and vulnerable.
Join us as we cast a spell to uncover what we each know is true in our intuitive, witchy selves.
Welcome to episode 111.
Activism.
I think this is going to be a great discussion. I mean, it's timely. So, but before we do that, shall we check in?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll start. We are recording this on June 19th, 2025. I'm good with years. Which is Juneteenth. And it's so funny. I was walking this morning and my neighbor drove past and they said, "Happy Juneteenth." And then they like braked on the car. They braked the car like their dog went to the windshield, which, you know, they should. Well, anyway. And they said, "Am I supposed to say that?"
Aww.
I said, "Yes, that's fine." And then I said, I think you're supposed to. So we waved and they walked on. I mean, but I wanted to talk about this anyway, just because of the date, but I just thought that was so funny. It was like it was like this, oh, do we, and I thought, do we say that? Because it's a commemorative holiday.
Right.
But then I got home and went to the Bible, Google.
Okay.
And typed in, "Do you say Happy Juneteenth?" And they said yes. So Google validated my initial response, which is it's fine, because it's actually a holiday for African Americans. So saying happy whatever for the holidays, well, I guess not every holiday, but anyway, it's fine. Because it's a celebration of freedom, celebration of acknowledgement. Obviously there's it's one of those things where the happiness is kind of covered over with everything else, but that doesn't take away from that happiness. So I'm happy Juneteenth, everyone who celebrates, and happy Juneteenth to the rest of the world. I just wanted to just mention it because it's one of those things that has become so huge. It's always been big among Blacks in Texas. But it wasn't, when I was growing up, it wasn't a big thing. I only learned about it as I got older. But talking to friends who, born and raised in here, their parents and grandparents celebrate. It was always a big thing here. So yeah, that's my check-in. It's on Juneteenth.
Question for you. Do you think that it wasn't as big for you because of geographically where you were? Okay.
Yes. It was just... It was so huge. First of all, I was raised in the North, so the whole thinking about slavery was different, right? But the Emancipation Proclamation had a different ring, different resonance for us. But it was, so I think that's a big part of it, because talking with people here, I was amazed when I heard how far back people celebrated, and people would walk to Galveston. I mean, they made. I don't know if they walked all the way to Galveston, sure, but they would go to Galveston and stuff like that to kind of celebrate, because that's where it was. I guess it was pronounced.
Wow.
Yeah, huge.
That's
so,
cool.
Yeah, so breathe in freedom.
Well, happy Juneteenth.
Thank you so much. What about you? What's going on with you?
I wanted to celebrate a personal victory.
Yay.
Which is that I finally hung mirrors on my living room wall.
I remember you. They were in like a...
Do you remember how they were?
Yeah, because we were there, and I think we had a flame or something, and
yes,
we could see the flame reflected in the mirrors. Yay! Congratulations!
Yeah.
Complimenti.
Thank you.
Am I shouting? Okay. Sorry.
So I'm excited because I don't like tasks like that, and it takes me a while to do it, and I find that I do best by making things into very small steps. Like today, I'm just going to figure out how I want them to be arranged. Tomorrow, I'm going to order the hardware, like little steps.
That's very smart.
And thank you. Otherwise, I put it off, and I did put this off for about a year.
But they looked fabulous where they were.
Right?
So I mean,
thank you. They were leaning.
No judgment, yeah, but
but now they're up, and they look really great. And I also just want to give a shout out to geometry because I'm just picky enough that they have to be at least within a certain window of like geometric cohesion. Like I'm not so picky that that it has to be like literally measured correctly, but I am picky enough that visually, if I glance, it looks similar.
Yes.
So what that means though is that because of me as a human and I'm not very great at hanging things up, I do have to be very geometrically precise.
Yes.
Because of my margin of error. So I actually took a piece of paper and I drew everything, and then I measured my mirrors, and then I measured the total space, and then I did all this subtraction and division to figure out how much extra space, and then how much space do I want on the sides, and then if that's how much is on the sides, and this is how much the mirrors are, then this is how much needs to be in between. And then I started from the middle and built out, and I created a grid of masking tape on the wall.
Oh my gosh, that's the way it's supposed to happen. That's not the way I do it.
And all of that made it mostly geometrically sound so that it looks good to me.
Oh, lovely.
So overall
Congratulations.
success.
Yay.
And I do want to give a shout out. One of the mirrors is a moon shape.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations.
So it looks
I can't
nice.
wait to come over and see it.
Yeah, it looks really good.
And to admire myself in all of your mirrors.
Thank you. I do like mirrors. I think it probably has something to do with being a witch, but I do really like mirrors.
And I think, remember we were in our discussion of the living room, you mentioned how it's very open and spare. And the mirrors give these optical illusions that kind of, I think, give a little depth to the room. To the already deep room.
Yeah.
but I mean, I love the idea of the mirrors. I can't wait to see them.
Thank you. I can't wait to have you over to look.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It sounds like it was a task that you handled really, really spectacularly.
I think so. I'm pretty dang proud.
Good.
Mirrors are good for looking at yourself and reflecting.
No.
Much like I think protests and activism offer us something to reflect on.
You go, girl. Make those connections. Yay. Well done, you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So can let's talk a little bit about this was not something that we had planned far in advance. This was I think, did we decide on this about 2 days ago? I think you mentioned it about a day or two ago.
Yesterday evening.
Oh, was it yesterday?
Yeah. Which sometimes can feel like multiple days.
Yeah.
Yesterday evening, and then I went to bed, and then I woke up to a text from you saying, okay. So for me, it was decided on this morning, but I think you decided on it last night.
Well, yes. Okay. But the impetus for this was this past week. So I mentioned that we're recording this on June 19th. I was coming back from New Jersey. I drove to New Jersey. I was coming back, and friends had been telling me for a long time about the Civil Rights Museum at the Lorraine Motel, the motel where MLK Jr. was assassinated. And I've been saying I'm going to stop. I've been saying I'm going to stop. And so I actually planned, similarly to someone who is sitting on this sofa with me, I actually planned how I could make that happen instead of just, as I get to Memphis, I really should have planned it. So I actually planned I parsed out the trip so that I could spend, anywhere from 2 to 4 hours at this museum. And I'll share a little bit more of my reaction to it, but there's so much in there about civil rights and, all of the things that people did to try to ensure that African Americans had their were able to exercise their civil rights in the United States. And I found it was really, really impactful. And I think, was I telling you about it on a Marco Polo?
Yes.
Okay, that's what happened. So I told you about it driving home. I recorded a Marco Polo.
Sure.
And mentioned my reaction to that. So, and that kind of dovetailed with your experience, if you care to share.
Yes, and I went to the No Kings protest, and I Marco Polo'd you about my experience at the No Kings protest. And my experience of our conversation through Marco Polo was that after you were sharing that, and then I was kind of propelled forward by what you said, it was like a springboard for what I had experienced in the march. And then I think you made the comment, maybe we should do an episode about because it's different, but it's connected. I'm certainly not conflating the civil rights movement with the No Kings protest. And I'm also, one of the things that I pondered at the No Kings protest was thinking about, like, no one is free until we're all free. And so even though, like, racism is different than sexism, is different than xenophobia, is different from transphobia, it's different from all these other things. I think what I am coming back to, especially for this episode, is this concept that we are all connected and none of us are free until we're all free, I think.
Exactly.
And I did some research that quote comes from Maya Angelou.
Mm-hmm. So, oh, really?
Yeah. I had thought it was from Martin Luther King Jr., but it turns out that a lot of people think it's from Martin Luther King Jr., but it's actually from Maya Angelou. So.
Are you going to tell me about it?
That's it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that. And then I think we'll circle back to our experiences. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, first, we're calling this episode Activism. And I think that's the umbrella term that will kind of encompass both of our experiences. So I just kind of did a down and dirty between reading your text. I know you were in bed, and I said, you know what? Well, do I want to say, should we call it activism? Should I call it protest? And I thought, well, they're kind of two different things. So I thought I'd, kind of just do a real quick search. Went to my friend Google, and we're like that. And got their information. So, just basically in the common parlance, when we're using the term activism or protest, what it's supposed to mean. And obviously people are going to have individual experiences with those terms. So activism is this broad term that kind of encompasses anything that you do that's aimed at creating change, either socially, politically, or environmentally, right? And so it's the idea of activism that it's a broad scope. So when you use that term, you're including all of these things, and it can include things like fundraising, community organizing, supporting people who are doing this work. And with activism, it's usually highly goal-oriented. Like an activist group has a specific goal, and that's their, all of the activities may not necessarily have that reflected, but they're in support of that goal. So when we talk about that activism, I'd like people to keep in mind that that's what I'm thinking about. Okay. Yeah, sure.
So one thing that I want to share about this as I was reading your notes is that I think protesting is a form of activism, but I think for me, I think when I think of activism, I think of protesting, and sometimes I just overlap the two.
I gotcha.
Much like I think people, when priestessing means the woman in the center of the circle, but really priestessing can mean so many different things.
Exactly.
So like the one becomes the all.
Yeah.
So this is helpful for me to kind of pull that apart and think activism encompasses so much more, and protest is one part.
Yeah. Well, and they call that a metonym. Have you heard of that term?
No.
So a metonym is, so for example, seeing a flag, so a part of something that stands for the whole.
Oh.
So a flag standing for the United States government, or when people say DC, or
yes.
Washington, that stands for the government, or seeing that a gun pointed right at you is supposed to be like thug life.
Oh.
You see, so that's a metonym.
Okay.
So I think that's what we're and people will, I think that's the most visible aspect of it. So when you hear activism, you think people with signs, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, good point.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
And so just one other thing, and then we can talk a little bit about protests and how we're feeling about that. That it can be either individual or collective. And again, there's so many acts. So I can be an activist by giving money to an activist group. Okay. I can be an activist by, and some people may disagree, but I'm just saying that any act that, any behavior or act that contributes to that activism is a part of that. So by making a panazidi for a collective meeting, right? So that kind of stuff is, in my opinion, and is, again, I'm just I'm just sharing my opinion. So would you like to, do you have any thoughts about that?
I do. I think that I'm going to botch the quote, but it's like where your desire meets the world's deep need, your deep
desire serves the world's deep, meets the world's greatest need or something, or great need.
Something like that. For me, that's activism, and I love thinking about all the different ways that people can show up as activists. And again, I think that very extroverted, very public marching of protest gets a lot of the attention. And like you said, the Bake Ziti for a community meeting, I think, is just as important in its own way. So I really enjoy consuming information around activism, and some of my recent some of my recent favorites have been, did you hear about the crosswalk announcements in Silicon Valley?
No.
Okay. So these activists hacked into the infrastructure so that in Silicon Valley, you know how you press the button, and in San Antonio it says, wait. And it goes beep, 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 right? Right. So
I'm like, hell, motherfucker.
Right, in Silicon Valley, it said, wait. And then this fake voice of Elon Musk came on and talked about like how he's so lonely and how he and how he's like this bad person and all this stuff. And so like that's like this thing of, and I saw it on TikTok, but so every time you press that button, like his voice came on and this like really long monologue. So like that to me is activism. The people who hack into the traffic messaging signs and change it to say fuck ICE. You know, like, or I saw that during BLM movement. They would like hack into the signs and make them say Black Lives Matter. So, another one that I've seen a lot on TikTok is women putting messages that say dump your conservative husband, and they put it in tampon boxes or formula containers. So like even like these like micro activisms. Yeah. So for me, I love seeing how there's so many opportunities for us to do things that don't necessarily look like walking down the street with a sign, but like, where are you? What is important to you, and what can you do?
Exactly. I love that. Yay. Yeah. And again, individual actions or collective actions, right? Yeah. So, and then so finally, just bringing the activism definition kind of to a close is the idea that there's a long-term impact that, instead, I mean, so there can be an activist group that's interested in the, civil rights of African Americans, but often they are voting rights, or it's, the ability to use the any door to enter a building, not colored only or whatever. And so there's usually there's a goal, and they recognize that it's not going to be immediate. So their efforts are towards slow and steady in most cases. So we'll see that these sustained efforts to actually influence systems. Okay, so yeah.
So I was reading up to today's Juneteenth, and so I was just doing some fun reading, and the Montgomery bus boycott is one of my favorite things to read about. And it was, and I didn't realize it, but it lasted, I can't remember the exact number of days, but over a year, like 380 something days.
Yeah. People walked.
And that to me, I was thinking about how long a year would feel if it was me having to walk to work every day.
Yeah.
Rain, shine, snow. Well, it doesn't, I don't know if snow's in Montgomery, Alabama, but rain, shine, more rain, more shine.
Angry white people yelling at you.
Yes. Yeah.
And maybe throwing things out of their car at you. And, it's just, yeah.
I was thinking about how that would be such a challenge. And then I read today about how they organized like carpools and just thinking about the commitment that took, and that is a long time.
It's a long time. It is. Yeah. Yeah. And so just as I'm going to talk more about my museum experience, but they have that bus, and they have these bronze statues of where Rosa Parks sat and the bus driver, and they have a it wasn't his voice. They didn't record his voice, but they have his word, or the words that people agreed he said, which is, if you don't get out of that seat right now, and so they had that playing on the loudspeaker, so you could walk through the bus, take pictures of her and the bus driver. I know. And listen to this being said while you're sitting in this is why this museum is so impactful. It's not just seeing a picture and hearing the experience, but it's actually walking through the fucking bus. The bus the Greyhound bus that they burnt at a different type, in a different thing, they have that bus, or they have a replica of that bus.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, this idea of, when you mentioned that boycott, that it's very, the whole thing at this museum is very visceral. Mm-hmm. And it helps us to make these connections that you just mentioned, mm-hmm. like what must it have been like? Mm-hmm. You get a sense. I mean, you don't get a sense of it because you're not doing it, but mm-hmm. you get a little taste of it. Yeah. So protest. Do you want to? Okay, I can. So and this is where you attended a really specific one that you're going to give us a lot mm-hmm. of information about. But protests are usually a specific type of action. Again, just one form of activism, usually the most visible, right? That we hear the most about often. It's a public demonstration, and it's used basically as a tool of activism to let the powers that be know what the people think. So this is, people may say that everything is beautiful and everyone loves me and I won by a mandate. I'm just saying, I'm just using those words. I'm just pulling those words out. But then this is a voice for the people that they wouldn't normally have, unless somebody has a poll and goes around to everybody's door, right? So it's usually a specific action, like they say on Saturday, this particular Saturday, because of other things or for whatever reason, we're all going to do something. Okay, it's as I say, this public demonstration. It's often disruptive, and not necessarily disruptive, though it can get out of hand where it's actually destroying property, but it's disruptive in that it makes people stop doing what they would normally do so that they see this protest. So usually you take over a street where people either have to walk around you or whatever, or, in some cases they block traffic or things like that. So it can be a number of different things, but it's the idea is that it's exerting pressure by really drawing attention. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then and so sometimes they can be kind of they can be ambiguous or unambiguous. So meaning that it can be really, really clear, no kings because a certain person said that they were going to rule forever or whatever. Or it can be a little bit more diffuse, and that's it. That could be the point of the organizers, or it could just happen that way, and we're never quite sure until it happens, how clear that's going to be. But the most important thing to recognize that it's a tool, and it's just one way of achieving those goals. Obviously, it's not the only, but again, it's one of the most visible.
And thinking back to, as I hear you say that, thinking back to activism, when these people were planning, for example, the No Kings protest, who brought them their ziti?
Yes.
Yeah. And that is just as important. When they were, I'm imagining they met for hours. Who fed them? Mm-hmm. Who sheltered them? Who provided that space? And so I just want to give a shout out to, those are forms of activism as well. So walking down the street with a sign is important and is easy to take a picture of. And there's just so many other ways that people can be involved. Mm-hmm. So may I share kind of so I went to the No Kings protest. I went with my sister and my niece, who I just want to give a shout out to. I went to the women's march with the same people, with my sister and my niece. So my niece is much older now. She was a minor back then, and now she's an adult. So that was one. I actually cried.
I can imagine.
I was walking with her, and she was holding up her sign, and I turned and I looked at her, and I realized I saw her at the women's march in my mind's eye, and I got a little teary-eyed. Mm-hmm. But then I also met some friends. I met some people from our circle down there, and they were, some of them were lumped together, and some of them were kind of distributed about. And I took a wagon, and I lined the wagon with trash bags, and then I dumped in ice and water and sunblock and because we're in South Texas, so it was very hot. And so I pulled the wagon around the park where in our city everyone was meeting before the march. And I pulled the wagon around and I offered people water, sunblock, and first aid if they needed it. So...
Yeah. There was one woman in our circle who was there with, I believe, her husband and someone else, or brother or whatever. And she said, "Oh, this lovely young lady gave me a bottle of water, and after she walked away, I realized it was you."
Yeah.
But and so a couple of other friends were down there. I said, "Did someone offer you water?" Because I wanted to say that was my friend, because I was obviously out of town, but. Yeah, thank you so much.
That was so interesting though, because
Did you know it was?
No, I didn't.
Oh, how funny! Out of context,
right? But I remembered that when she described the people that I offered water to, I remembered them. But then I did not. I mean, there was thousands of people, and so I was not really focusing. I was kind of like when I said like free water for fighting fascism, like like that's what I said. Like I was just. I just kind of had unfocused eyes, and I was kind of looking left and right over the people, trying to look for someone who might need it. I was looking for like older people, children, or people who just looked really dehydrated.
They had that drawn look.
Yes, right. We all know that look in South Texas, I think. So,
yes, exactly.
So my experience, though, is... So I was nervous. And there's been some other things that I've done, like the time I went down to the courthouse on the day that they made marriage equality happen. And that was a really big learning for me. Anytime I feel afraid in that certain way, that's how I know it's something that I'm supposed to do. So like that was my feeling around bringing the water. So that's how I knew I was supposed to do it. But my experience when I was pulling the wagon is that it was really nice. Like I had a couple people offer me money to help pay for it.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And I said, no, like you being here is payment. All you have to do is fight fascism. And you're doing that by being here. I had a number of people who had brought a few extra bottles of water, which I had heard the organizers say, like, bring enough water and then bring some extra in case someone needs it, that they, like, opened up their bags and dumped bottles of water into mine so that I could distribute it. And I thought that was really, really sweet.
Oh, yeah.
So it was, aside from my experience at the protest, that experience was really heartening to see such love and such care. And, like, I was trying to be the person, like, helping, but then all these people stepped up to help me. And, like, how moving was that for me?
That is very sweet.
It was very sweet.
May I respond to something that you said? You said that when some people offer to pay, and you said your being here is payment enough. And so to me, this comes back to the goal of the event. I'm not sure what the planners were thinking, that they just wanted numbers there to refute somebody else's allegement that, you know, how important they are, etc. If they wanted to see this, and this is, so when you think about this, if they wanted to just stir emotion and passion among people so they can continue the fight, right? So the protest could be a number of different things. Just the display of the signs. It could be the collective action and the energy that it creates. You know, where someone who's by themselves saying, you know, yeah, this sucks and there's nothing I can do. And when you're there, you realize whether you can do something or not, there's other people at least in the same boat. You are not alone. You know, how effective your actions might be, it's not even the question at this point. It's that you are not alone. So there is that's the collective part, the communal part, excuse me, the numbers, the sheer numbers, the ability to inspire each other to see, oh, that's a great sign. I never thought about that, you know, so there's ways in which this helps people to continue as activists just by virtue of being there, whether or not they had a sign, whether or not they had water or whatever, that there's so much interaction going on, so much energy raising. There's so many other things that are happening besides what the planners might have had in mind.
Mm-hmm. One thing that you said that reminds me of when I was down there, we do live in a blue city, but we live in a very red state of Texas, and it felt really good to not feel alone. I felt I felt, okay, so when I walk through the grocery store, sometimes I feel politically alone. Like, and then walking through the grocery store, meaning like in my day-to-day mundane life, I can feel politically isolated. When I was there, I felt so, I mean, there were thousands of people there. I felt not alone. I felt a part of community, and I felt supported. And one of my big learnings was, while I was down there, I was walking around and looking at people, and there were many people that I would judge if I saw them at our local grocery store. I would judge them as not being supportive because of the way they looked, particularly like older white women. And then I saw them and I thought, like, man, this is an interesting thing for me to like work on myself.
Yeah, I don't want to start talking about it because there's a lot there to unpack. But yeah, you know, that the ways in which it just causes our eyes to see differently.
I love the way you say that, though, because my personal eyes, the eyes of the world, and a lot of, especially in this age of social media and visual communication mediums, television, social media, on the internet, the visuals are so important because it's how things are communicated now. And so by getting the thousands and thousands of us together, we create that powerful visual image. And I think that's part of the point of it. And like you said, like sustained things, it's not the only point. Like we have to keep going on. I also want to say, as somebody who goes to raves, the similarity between rave culture and protest culture, I brought a visual for you.
Oh.
Okay. Okay. 2 of these 3 are from a rave and 1 is from the protest. But do you see how similar they are?
Oh my gosh.
So I brought 2. Okay. I brought 2 pieces of candy. Those like beaded bracelets. Okay. So this is one from a rave I went to, and it says "There's beauty here."
Ooh.
Okay, so that's from a rave. Yeah. This is like a little token that people give out at raves.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
It's a little duck.
Yeah. Oh, sweet.
Okay, and then this is a piece of candy I got at the rave.
Is that candy?
Well, candy is what these are called, like these like bracelets.
I was thinking, okay.
In rave culture, they're called candy.
Okay.
But this says
fuck ice.
Fuck ice. But I mean, that's a whole other thing we could talk about. But just this communal, which I think both are similar in that there's this community coming together around a common cause. In my experience at raves, just like my experience at protests, is everyone is really invested in the wellness of everyone else around them. And these things show up like candy.
That's huge. So, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Me too. So
we had, like I said, regardless of what the planners were thinking, whatever the goal of in terms of the planners, you know, there are all these other goals. And one of the goals was, you know, the sheer number of people showing up, sending a message, is my opinion. I don't know if anyone said that, but that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I don't know how you feel. Would you care to share a little bit of data about that?
Because I love it. So it took a few days for the numbers to get in. And these seem to be the finalized numbers, because it took a while because there were so many smaller towns. For example, my parents who live in the Ozarks went to a protest in their small town in the county, and there were 250 people at that small town protest. Now, to some of you, 250 might not sound like a lot. As somebody who lived in that small town in the Ozarks, that blows my mind.
That there were 250
That's a lot of people
that are supportive of these types of things.
That showed up in rural Missouri for the No Kings protest. That blows my mind. So anyways, it took a while for the numbers in the small towns to filter in. So I waited to gather this data, but here's what we're looking at. So in the context of history, the No Kings protest, which was in 2025, is the largest single-day U.S. political protest in our country's history, with 5 million people participating just in this country that we know of. Wow. And I know because I consume content from BBC and Al Jazeera to try and make sure I get news from outside of our country, because it's really interesting.
Yes.
There were protests all over the world.
That's what. Yeah, I was going to add.
So, but there were No Kings protests. That's not including those. And so, just some context. So the No Kings protest was 5 million. Some context of other protests. The Women's March is the second largest in 2017 with 4.16 million.
Okay.
The Vietnam Moratorium in 1969, 2 million. March for Our Lives in 2018, 1.2 million. Nuclear Freeze Rally, 1982, 1 million. By the way, that's the only one I didn't know what that was. I had to look that up.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah, but that was the year before I was born. And then the George Floyd BLM protest in 2020 was 0.5 million. And I just want to point out something I thought was interesting is that 4 out of the 6 of these have been since Trump was elected in 2016. So
damn.
Let's just put, I just want to.
let's put a, damn.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, well, we can say that he is causing us to pull together.
For sure.
He's a catalyst for change.
Yes.
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 So, wow, that's huge. That is huge.
And 2 million for the Vietnam moratorium in 1969.
And that was considered, that took politicians, it took them, they knew, that's why we had a draft, right?
Right.
But that number of people was considered huge it was huge at that time.
And that was done without social media. I only got my information for No Kings from TikTok and social media. I did not get it from any website or anything on a television. I don't even own a television. Like I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
2 million people without social media.
Yeah.
That's huge.
And they didn't have access to the established media at that time because they wouldn't show that kind of stuff. This was done with like hand flyers.
Jeez.
Think about that, and word of mouth and and I think they might have had some phone banks and stuff like that. But it was really low tech.
Wow.
Low tech. It was OG activism, Yeah, no, that's amazing. So as we think about this, I think a takeaway for me is that people may go to these things with maybe anger, fear, for a number of, they're fighting fear. They're angry at what they feel are going to be losses if they don't do this. But there's these incredible, positive, powerfully positive effects. And again, and as I say, you can't plan for it. It just happens. You might know, having gone to another one, this was the feeling I had. But, I used to do a lecture for the community lecture about protest songs and how when people would be singing some of these songs like we shall overcome, they would be walking down, and so like 2 blocks away you would hear like these waves or feel these waves coming towards you and not know what it was. You would just kind of hear it. It's almost like the sound of a tsunami or a tornado or whatever. And as they got closer, you'd feel the feet walking, shaking the ground, and hear the voices singing these songs. And so it was a power, you do this to support the people who are marching so that they can keep going, developing a communal spirit. But it's also really powerful for those who are not a part of it or who are there just to, I don't want to say just to observe, but because they're there too, right? So, but who are there for various reasons to be able to participate in this energy. So there's an energy, that's another discussion perhaps for another day, but there's an energy that's involved with this that I am convinced contributes to change, regardless of whether anyone paid any attention to, whether the established media paid any attention to it or not.
When you talk about energy, I wanted to ask your opinion on this. The intersection of witchcraft and activism. One thing I noticed is that on my TikTok, which is at the intersection of witchcraft and activism, is that I did get a good amount of content around witches organizing for the No Kings protest and certain types of spell work being done at certain times in certain places. And then people, whether or not they were attending a protest, could join in on sending their magic and their energy. So I think that's really cool. I do struggle as a witch, not with if I should be politically active. I believe part of my spiritual calling is that like I said at the beginning, none of us are free until all of us are free. And that's deeply woven into who I am and my spiritual practice. But we've had conversations about this before, about I'm not sure where the line is with my spiritual practice and activism on like what is acceptable and what is not acceptable to me spiritually. And we've had discussions about this before. But this was another example where I was watching others and I saw some things that I thought were not okay for me to do. And then I saw some things where I thought were okay for me to do. I was just curious if you had any, what was your spiritual calling?
Thank you for asking. It's actually it's really, really complex. So let me explain my fundamental beliefs. One of them is that basically we are these energetic spiritual beings. And this is totally, so this is the caveat. I am not expressing the opinions of both people on this microphone, but I believe that we are these spiritual, energetic beings that have chosen to inhabit this 3D body. So this body that's kind of limited in terms of senses, et cetera, limited in terms of lifespan. So that have chosen to experience life. Okay, so that we've made this choice, so we can do this. So there is that. However, I am truly this being that has no form, that has no shape, that has no body, and that as I evolve, I no longer need to. It's like a child having a tea party. And the parents have the tea party, they sit down with them and they have to make believe tea, etc. And as she gets older and older and older, she has less of the need for the tea party because she actually has real tea. Or she instead of having the tea party with her parents, she might go out and have drinks with her friends or with eventually a partner. And as you evolve, you leave childish things behind, like it says in the Bible, and you become more and more your authentic self. And so the conflict for me is that this is, I feel that energetically and vibrationally, I am moving more and more back to that spiritual being. And, I've played in the sandbox, and I'm leaving that behind. The problem being the more attached you are to that, the harder it is to go back to the spiritual thing. So I'm always juggling, am I giving too much energy to this 3D world that's keeping me from, ascending back to to experiencing my true essential self? And so I'm always juggling how much energy I want to give to various things. So I actually can't remember. Oh, you just said what? Yeah. Okay. It's like, what was the original question? So anytime these things happen, what I am confronted with is, how do I be a part of this without giving so much energy that this becomes such a reality for everyone, because I'm making it more and more real, the more energy I put in that. And is it better than to dwell on the skills and tools of my higher self, compassion, love, vibrational change, to make that happen instead of standing in the street with a sign? Could I have more impact? Could I do more change if I raise the vibration? So as a whole, the rising tide raises all ships. So as a whole, we all become better people, and we inhabit our spiritual, compassionate, love-filled, light-centered selves more by giving that energy. So I'm constantly not constantly, but I'm constantly choosing between those two. For me, I've created this as a dichotomy, and my challenge, goal, desire is to make myself more like rolling along the spectrum, as opposed to having to choose between either or. So I haven't answered your question. That's because I have no answer for your question.
And I think that's a really powerful answer to the question, is not having one.
Okay, there. Yeah, thank you. So,
and I noticed that I struggled. I didn't see this in person, but on social media I saw a voodoo doll of Trump that had pens that people could stick in it. And this isn't a commentary on voodoo at all. It's a commentary on my belief of tools and witchcraft. Not that voodoo is witchcraft, but it's totally separate. But like that made me uncomfortable as a witch. Something like doing something like that. Mm-hmm. And yet also I was like, kind of like it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Ooh, but as a witch, I don't know, you know? And then like when we were marching, one of the chants was "fuck Donald Trump, fuck ICE," and then people started yelling and Greg Abbott and Ted Cruz, you know, which
because fair,
yeah. And then so there's a part, and I did chant that, like I did say that, and then there was a part of me that's like, I don't like that language, like sexual violence is not okay with me, even in this context. But then there's another part of me that was like,
but if it were,
I mean.
Who better?
But think about what he, you know. But, so like, then those are just two examples. And I think part of being a witch for me is understanding the power in words and images and magical tools, and the power that I hold and bring as a witch. And then I'm standing in this like liminal space where I'm like, yeah, but also like, but also like, yeah.
All those different sounds. Right, exactly.
And just like you, I'm circling back to say I haven't found an answer. My answer is that I don't have an answer.
And I think I'm convinced that that's a part of the reason why I'm here, is to not necessarily create the answer, but to experience all the things I need to, so that the answer will be eventually apparent to me. Okay, so
I just feel like I need to sit like with that for like 5 years. This is an audio medium, so people can't see, but as you said that, my eyes kind of went big and then I glazed over for a second. Like I got hit with a tsunami of knowledge, and I'm just like, whoa.
Oh, that's so sweet. That's sweet. So I'd like to just kind of so briefly, we talked about activism and what I found going to the national. So just to reiterate, I went to the National Civil Rights Museum in Memphis. It's at the it's a part of the former. They've taken the Lorraine Motel, which was where Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, and they've used that as they've kept those rooms intact.
Oh wow!
The rooms they had 2 rooms, I think it was 306 and 307. And I was just picturing them all just kind of piling in. I think they were meeting in those rooms. They weren't necessarily sleeping in those rooms, but whatever. And they kept that intact. And then the rest of that whole complex has become this huge, privately funded, totally built from private funds donated by a lot of, the Black community in Memphis, but throughout the country. I think now they might have like written a grant that has some federal funding, but anyway. This huge monument to civil rights activism for African Americans in the United States. And so they, obviously they talked about stuff in Memphis, but they, the bus boycott, they had artifacts, like huge amounts. I mentioned the bus, all of these different things that they've collected, and they have videos of like MLK's speeches, Stokely Carmichael, Malcolm X, just various Malcolm X, Maya Angelou, just various people over the years in various places. So they'll have the video while you're surrounded by either bronzes of the people, of the men. So there was I think in Birmingham was a sanitation worker strike. And so those men with signs saying, "I am a man," because they were treated that way. And, so a really powerful experience. And what I think is significant is that it has all of these historical aspects, but they talk about they're still that they're celebrating and commemorating these historical moments, but they're also exploring the ongoing fight, because it's not over. I mean, like you said, no one's free until everyone's free, and freedom is a judiciously distributed concept here in this country. So there's different, like I said, exhibits about the impact of legislation, Supreme Court decisions, all of these types of things. And one of the things that I found significant, that they emphasized MLK's focus on economic justice, that it's not just oh yeah, you can use these water fountains now, or you can, because if that's just in our world, which runs so dramatically on, you know, corporations and economics, that if you don't have economic justice, it's, you know, it's, I mean, it's great having the other stuff, but you're not getting anywhere. So, you know, so he was really advocating for creating ways of making sure that there were resources, like diverting resources from war to poverty and inequality. So I just, that whole experience, you know, particularly, I don't think I heard your Marco Polo before I went to the museum. I think it was afterwards, but I'm not sure. But you know, the whole weekend. So that the No Kings March was on Saturday, and I went to the museum on Sunday. It was just a really compelling weekend for me, just hearing these numbers and getting texts from various friends in various parts of the country with their signs and at various protests. I mean, you mentioned in your hometown, 250 people. There were 16 people in one spot. There might have been other spots, but in one spot in Dripping Springs. And they had signs that said "honk if you don't want kings" or whatever, and people were honking. But you know, in Dripping Springs, it's not a blue place. Okay, right. Just saying. And they were getting fingers and hand signs and people shouting stuff at them, but they were standing there with their signs. 16 people, you know, such a small number, but that's huge for that place. You know, so this idea that, you know, people are standing for something, like if you don't stand for something, what will you fall for? You know, so, you know, people are standing for this for whatever reasons. Like I said, there's, I'm sure, myriad reasons for doing this. That whole weekend for me was heart-wrenching, really, really graphic in some instances, like being in the museum. But there were moments where there was so much uplift for me, so much where I'm so happy to be a human being. There were moments in about half a year ago, where I just thought, what the fuck? Why, you know, what's wrong? Not what's wrong with us, but maybe I was saying what's wrong with us. And so this just gave me so much heart, just hearing these numbers, and even before I started hearing the numbers, just seeing the pictures that friends were sending and hearing their statements, and it was just a really powerful weekend for me. And I, you know, it sounds like you had your own experience of that, but
yeah. I love that inadvertently we had these experiences literally on like touching days, you know, even though we were so far apart. And it just reminds me of how connected that we are, and how connected the world is, and how protests and activism show up in all these different ways, but they're woven into our lives, I think intentionally, and in our country's history, in the past and present and in the future.
Yeah. So our poem is by Maya Angelou, who I believe needs no introduction. What I find fascinating is that most of her life was lived through this period that I experienced when I was at the National Civil Rights Museum, and obviously she's been an outspoken advocate for DEI initiatives and you know, supporting. Supporting like Obama and writing poems, etc., for his inauguration. And so this is another famous poem, A Brave and Startling Truth.
We, this people, on a small and lonely planet, traveling through casual space, past aloof stars, across the way of indifferent suns, to a destination where all signs tell us it is possible and imperative that we learn a brave and startling truth. And when we come to it, to the day of peacemaking, when we release our fingers from fists of hostility and allow the pure air to cool our palms, when we come to it, when the curtain falls on a minstrel show of hate and faces sooted with scorn and scrubbed clean when battlefields and coliseums no longer rake our unique and particular sons and daughters up with the bruised and bloody grass to lie in the identical plots in foreign soil.
When the rapacious storming of the churches, the screaming racket in the temples have ceased, when the pennants are waving gaily, when the banners of the world tremble stoutly in the good, clean breeze. When we come to it, when we let the rifles fall from our shoulders and children dress their dolls in flags of truce, when landmines of death have been removed and the aged can walk into evenings of peace, when religious ritual is not perfumed by the incense of burning flesh, and childhood dreams are not kicked away by nightmares of abuse.
When we come to it, then we will confess that not the pyramids with their stones set in mysterious perfection, nor the gardens of Babylon hanging as eternal beauty in our collective memory, not the Grand Canyon kindled in delicious color by western sunsets, not the Danube flowing its blue soul into Europe, not the sacred peak of Mount Fuji stretching to the rising sun, neither Father Amazon nor Mother Mississippi, who, without favor, nurture all creatures in the depths on the shores. These are not the only wonders of the world.
When we come to it, we, this people, on this minuscule and kithless globe, who reach daily for the bomb, the blade, and the dagger, yet who petition in the dark for tokens of peace. We, this people, on this mote of matter, in whose mouths abide cantankerous words, which challenge our very existence, yet out of those same mouths come songs of such exquisite sweetness that the heart falters in its labor and the body is quieted into awe.
We, this people, on this small and drifting planet, whose hands can strike with such abandon that in a twinkling life is sapped from the living, yet those same hands can touch with such healing, irresistible tenderness, and the haughty neck is happy to bow, and the proud back is glad to bend. Out of such chaos, of such contradiction, we learn that we are neither devils nor divines.
When we come to it, we, this people, on this wayward floating body, created on this earth, of this earth, have the power to fashion for this earth a climate where every man and every woman can live freely without sanctimonious piety, without crippling fear.
When we come to it, we must confess that we are the possible. We are the miraculous, the true wonder of this world.
That is when, and only when, we come to it. May we live in a world where we can come to these brave and startling truths. So mote it be.
So mote it be. We hope you have enjoyed the magic that has unfolded here at Witchy Wit.
It would be great if you would help make Witchy Wit possible and get access to exclusive content by donating on Patreon.
We'd love it if you join our Witchy community and enjoy shareable content on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube.
Would you do us a big favor and support us by rating and reviewing us wherever you get your podcasts? It's free and helps witchy folks find us.
Feel free to email us at witchywitpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from our community. Reach out and let us know what's brewing in your cauldron.
New episodes are released every second and fourth Friday. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so our episodes go right to your playlist. You can listen as you ride your broom.
Stay witchy, y'all!